Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in for the noontime show. Would like to thank Bob Whitcomb and Ray Rickman for coming on, and would also like to thank my next guest, Wendy Fachon. Thank you for coming back today.
Thank you, Kate, for having me back.
I appreciate your coming back and talking about the Jester and Pharley Phund, of which you are an ambassador for here in the state. You've got the books, you've got the props.
Yeah.
I'm really going to let you start to tell the story.
Okay.
And let's start it from Neil.
Okay, we'll start from Neil. We lost our son 2 years ago to cancer. But really, his story began with the Jester and Pharley Phund a few years before that. When he was in high school, he was part of the student leadership training program. And as part of that program, he would bring this book into local schools in East Greenwich. And with associates of his, they do dramatic presentations of the Jester story. This was Neil's Pharley piece. He would play Pharley and do silly voices for Pharley. And then what they would do is, after they present to the kids would put on a readathon to raise money for the Jester and Pharley Phund. So the kids would get paid, say, a penny a page, and they'd raise that money, send it to the Jester and Pharley Phund, and that became books that were donated to kids in hospitals, kids fighting pediatric cancer, kids with other challenges as well. So the book and the doll, these are the Jester and Pharley Phund. They've, start a little bit with the author, David Salzman. Okay, he was a student at Yale University, an artist and English major, and his senior year he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's. Then he managed to write and illustrate this beautiful story about the Jester, and he passed away at age 23. 5 years later, his mother and father made sure this was published. They mortgaged their house to publish the book, and then once it was published, they had 10,000 copies that they sent to children all across the country in hospitals. A really incredible story. This was before Neil was even born.
Right before. It was actually,
right,
I saw he was born just after the book was published.
Just after the book was published, like the year after.
And then when he got his own diagnosis, he turned to the book.
Well, actually, 2.5 weeks after Neil was diagnosed, a package arrived at our door. This is the book, this is the doll. So Neil actually had his own book and doll when he was diagnosed. And it's just, there's so many parallels between Neil's life and David's life and the Jester's story in the book. It's a wonderful story about just resilience and positivity and character, and it's just, I don't know, I could go on and on about what a wonderful story is. I could tell you a little bit about it, but I really think that it's something people have to discover for themselves. It's just such a beautiful gift.
And speaking of discovering for themselves, you've been bringing this to students into schools. I've been seeing all the pictures this week with all the young students and taking part and reading the book and pictures with it. I mean, what's the reaction when you bring it, especially very young folks and especially young people, learning to deal with their emotions and how to react to things, and it must be just so impactful to share the story with them.
It's absolutely. It's very uplifting. I love to present all the pictures. Ask the kids what they love about the story. What resonates with them. It's always different for each child. It's a different page, a different part of the story. Really, really interesting. One of the boys had just lost his grandfather 2 weeks ago when we were doing the story this week, and so we talked about that a little bit, and it brings up those conversations. It's I don't know. It's really, and there's so many other messages in there about being a difference maker, knowing that you can make a difference in other people's lives, and that was Neil's big thing. He was always saying, just never underestimate the power you have to touch someone else's life, and he was all about that. Neil was a jester himself. He was always smiling, always taking care of other people, always making other people laugh, and it's just so wonderful when this book gets in the hands of whether it's a child who's just struggling with family at home in life situations, you know, at-risk kids or whatever. It's a wonderful story for them. But then for the kids that are in the hospital, this, you know, the Jester arrives, jingly little Jester arrives at their, you know, at the door of the hospital with the book, and it just lights up their life. And I think it's so important, you know, we look at medicine, I think laughter really is the best medicine. I mean, it is actually shown to be an epigenetic factor. You know, our moods, our emotions, and our thought patterns play into how well we can, you know, face a challenge like a disease or anything else. So
I'm just going to bring you a little bit closer over here, Wendy, because I don't want you to scoot away, because there's big news, too, about going now to a bilingual version.
Well, actually, they've had the bilingual version, and we gave that to all the kids. That's right behind here.
Let's go here.
If you want to open up just to the middle, anywhere in here, really randomly, you can kind of see how the bilingual, the Spanish is down here, the English is up here. And it's great for, you know, particularly, I work with a lot of kids in after-school programs who are from Spanish-speaking families, but the kids can read English because they're learning to in school, but the parents can't read English, but the parents can read Spanish. So this is a book that they can share all together as a family, which I think is just fabulous. And I just heard yesterday that they're in the process, actually at press now, is a book that's going to be Japanese and English.
Fantastic.
5,000 books are being printed right now. So it's just, the Jester just keeps expanding, and new things are constantly happening with the organization. So it's really exciting to be a part of that. And I am so grateful. And this is how I channel my son's spirit, is by sharing this book and sharing the joy.
Now I hear a little bit of the jingling. You had come across something that had reminded you of a jingle this week, and you believe it was a sign.
Oh yeah, I wrote about it, but we were on the beach, and there were a whole bunch of jingle shells. This was out at Rome Point in North Kingstown, and there were jingle shells all over, but I couldn't remember the name jingle shells. I know them as toenail shells. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that. And I'm like, no, there's another name. It's not toenail shells. And all of a sudden, I saw this wiffle ball that looked like it was about this big, and it was tarnished with algae, so it was like a golden color, and it looked just like a giant jingle bell. And I'm like, oh my gosh, jingle shells! I know. Okay, so it was really pretty funny. I just felt as if Neil was there walking with me. It was his spirit. I just feel it everywhere.
Well, his spirit lives on, as he said, in the Jester role. And
yes.
And wanting to make kids laugh at any stage in life, and especially kids who are facing adversity. And it's the Jester and Pharley Phund that promotes the reading and promotes back to the community as well. And we'll, of course, provide links to that, so if folks are watching and said...
And I might add that they have a fun book, a curriculum guide for teachers, and a supplement. So there's all kinds of great support material for the classrooms. Yeah.
Well, they've done a wonderful book honoring Neil. And Wendy, I appreciate your coming in and your work in the community with sharing this wonderful book, again, with more students in the state, across Rhode Island, across the world. The Jester has lost his jingle, and now several editions. So, of course, we'll provide links again to the Jester and Pharley Phund. So, Wendy Fachon, thank you so much for taking the time to come in.
Thank you so much.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back with our last and final guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.